7 p.m. at the City Hall building, 915 South Togerville Road, Bisbee, Arizona. Ms. Coronado, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lewis Pollock.
Here.
Councilmember Joni Giacomino.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Higgins.
Here.
Mayor David M. Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Leslie Johns. Here. Councilmember Joan Hanson is excused. Mayor Pro Tem Anna Klein.
Here.
City staff Teresa Coleman, City Manager, Ashley Coronado, City Clerk, Carrie Bagley, Finance Director, Joelle Landers, Personnel Director, Jesus Haro, Public Works Director, Albert E. Chavez, Police Chief, George Castillo, Fire Chief, James Ledbetter, City Attorney.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Obviously, we're on reruns on television, so it's good to see you all here. For our moment of silence, I'd like to do something fun for a change, and just reflect on our good relations with our neighbors to the south. I'll discuss in just a few minutes some things that went on very recently, but the fact is that we've got brothers and sisters on the south side of, to the south of us in Mexico, that really want to join with us in our culture and our arts and our mutual enjoyment. So if we just reflect on friendship for a change. Thank you. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks so much. We do have, I do have some announcements tonight. First of all, I'd like, as a first order of business, to both recognize, welcome, and particularly thank the Bisbee Fire Department for the tremendous job that they did last week in a fire in Old Bisbee. And I'd like to acknowledge the fact that it was under the command of Captain Davey, and that he was the incident commander on that particular incident, and that I'm sort of in that business, as many of you know, and I can attest to the fact that this was an extraordinary fire stop, it's called. The fact is that we did lose 2 homes. We had a few more with minor damage in a couple vehicles, but the fact is those houses are about 3 feet apart. And the fact that we only lost 2 of those is absolutely an amazing situation. So I'd really like to thank the department and ask them if the chief would come forward and have them come forward so that we could recognize them. Chief?
Would you like me to say some things? I kind of would. Just for you guys to know, that fire that night, that happened on Saturday, November 9th at about 11:17. They were called for a residential structure fire at 305 O'Hara. Station 82, which is located in Old Bisbee, was the first on scene within minutes. It was led by firefighter Ty Schlegel over there, and Anthony Leon, but he's out on a call right now, I believe. Those 2 guys, their fast actions, pretty much getting hoses deployed right away, save them structures, and it was followed up by Station 81's crew led by Captain Davey and co-led by Lieutenant Raul Villasenor. The initial call on that, we were short-staffed that night, so there was only 5 people on that fire. Fires like that, they usually call 3 or 4 engine companies right away. Fortunately, I was out of town the only time I leave, because I never leave town. This happens, I was aware of it right away. I canceled my vacation and I headed right back home. I was on scene first thing in the morning. And like the mayor says, the whole time coming home, I was worried. I saw videos and I saw pictures online of that fire. I was worried about my guys and my lady and the neighborhood. When I got on scene, I was, we lost 2 structures, but I was very amazed what these fine gentlemen have done. I'm very proud to have these guys here. And Captain Davey did a tremendous job from my absence. He's a good leader, and thank you, Captain Davey. He did a tremendous job on all you guys. If you guys will come up here, please. First 5 were on scene, and then we did an all-page. There was some communication issues with our system, but we had 2 off-duty that showed up as well, Kevin Pacheco and or Lieutenant Kevin Pacheco and firefighter Robert Klein was also on scene. Also thanks to the police department as well for their help, and the NACO and San Jose fire departments for assisting us. It took a little while to get there, but they did show up, and we thank them very much. And thank you.
Well done. Well, hopefully with the success of a fire prevention program, we'll never have to do that again.
Mayor,
Yes.
can I just add something?
Sure.
I would just like to also thank Deacon Tony for opening the hall to us and making sure that they had some place to go in and got some coffee going. And to Mitzi at BBC and the management team at Safeway for providing food in the middle of the night for these guys. It was very much appreciated, so thank you.
Thanks. Again, thank you all to the guys and gals. Further announcements, Festival of the Lights is November 29th in City Park. That's the day after Thanksgiving. And that's a fun time. Bring the kids and yourself. There's some goodies and toys for the kids and games to play and so forth. And Public Works does a great job of setting that up. And we've had a couple very, very kind donors that have provided monetary assistance to the city for all those fun things. So, thanks to the donors also. Ward 3 Town Hall meeting at 3 p.m. at Library Annex.
1 p.m.
1 p.m.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. You want to know?
Okay.
1 p.m. Library Annex. And that is on Thursday?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, Ward 3, if you can, show up at the Library Annex at 1 o'clock on Thursday, and meet for a town hall. And we have been named as one of the top 10 towns that are competing to win the Small Business Revolution. And this is a big deal. This is the winner gets a $500,000 small business revitalization, where experts come in and talk to small business within the city, and the purpose is to revitalize our economy. And so what this means is, this is put on by Deluxe.com. Deluxe, for those that know, typically in business and so forth, your business checks that you order are through the company called Deluxe.com. And they're the ones that are doing this. And so if you would, go to Deluxe.com website, because they'll let you know how you can vote. And on January 14th of 2020, they'll be announcing the top 5. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we will be the city chosen, which would be a huge boon for all of us and the business community, and certainly the city, as a result of that infusion of both cash and expertise. As far as my activities, on the 6th, I attended a conference call with a couple of our grant writers and Public Works and the city manager and Arizona Water, talking about a feasibility study for Old Bisbee fire suppression system. And that feasibility study grant has been written and has been put in. So we have put in for that. It's a large grant with the purpose of evaluating our total system with the potential of complete replacement. And that's why we are working with Arizona Water on that. On the 8th, I met with members of the press. We had a press conference in reference to the bicentennial concert. On Veterans Day, which was the 11th, I was honored to be the MC for the Veterans Day celebration at Evergreen Cemetery, which was really a good celebration. We had the VFW there, the American Legion there, the Legion Riders were there, and so forth, and a number of folks. The cemetery committees to be thanked for putting it together. I see Ms. Giacomino's here. I don't see anybody else from the cemetery committee, so if you are, I apologize for passing over you, but thank you very much. Great for the city. On the 14th, I met in Naco, and we finalized the plans for the 16th for the bicentennial concert. And on the 16th, we had the concert, but prior to that, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we had a lunch at Camp Naco. So we actually got to use Camp Naco. And we had a lunch, and it was completely catered by the mayor of Naco, Andrea Ramos. Her mother made all the food for 50 people. And it was terrific. Really terrific. And it was a lot of fun to get together, and there was a great attendance from Mexico. We had a woman from the House of Representatives, the Mexico House of Representatives, representing the state of Sonora was there, as well as state officials, and of course the mayor and her staff were there. And we had a couple council people there, and people from Camp Naco, and it was really a lot of fun and great. And that was followed up with 4 o'clock, we started the bicentennial concert itself. We walked across the border, and then we came back and met at the border, exchanged hugs and gifts. And I will say that the state of Sonora and Naco gave me for us a beautiful ironwood carved statue of a deer dancer. And it is absolutely beautiful. It's made out of ironwood, carved by the Seri Indians, and it's now on display at our library. So anybody that would like to see it, please swing by the library and take a look. It truly is, it's absolutely beautiful. And so I was very honored to be able to receive that on behalf of the city. And I want to thank a couple people, but most of all, I want to thank Ashley. She killed herself for us as always, setting up, tearing down, and I want to thank, and unfortunately, when you start thanking people, you leave things out. Right? So I'm sorry in advance. Councilman Pollock helped set up and really helped a great deal. Our public works people having barricades down there and so forth. The county for working with us and getting a permit and closing off streets in Naco. Chuck Alton for doing filming and so forth. And Mike Anderson for being the MC. There's just tons of people. It was a lot of fun. We didn't have as great a turnout as I hoped, but it's the first one. So if we do it again, then we hope to have more. On the Naco side, they had a heck of a party. They had a couple of hundred people. They had fireworks at the end. They really had a great time. So we hope to possibly do this again next year, and with pre-planning, this was put together in 5 weeks, so it was like unbelievable. So with pre-planning, we hope that it'll be great. So in any event, that's the end of what I was involved in. So we have call of the public, and we have Leslie Kurtak. Ms. Kurtak, welcome.
Can I just speak from here?
No, ma'am. You need to use the mic because you're on TV.
That's not what I was here for. In fact, I was hoping no one would show up because of the weather. So,
Welcome.
thank you. Should I just take this up?
Sure.
I'm pretty tall. Why I'm here is I live on Brophy Avenue, and there's been a lot of problems with the feral cats there, as everyone knows, and a lot of drama surrounding it. And apparently there's a trap, neuter, release program in effect. Done a lot of research on it. I'm happy with the trap part, the neuter part, but the release part not so happy with. We had over 20 cats picked up by Dee from Animal Control. She estimates there's 40 cats on the street. That's one little tiny street with 40 cats. And I've been living there for about almost 4 years now. I think it's even if they're fixed and they have all the medicine and they're all healthy, they're still a nuisance. They're still they impact the environment negatively by killing all the birds and wildlife, and it's atrocious smelling. I don't want the cats released back to our street. I want them somewhere else. And there's this one little, I did a lot of research on this, and there's two sides of the story with TNR, or trap, neuter and release. Some people are very much for it, but there is a lot of recent research that says this is a bad idea. And I'm gonna be going on that side. Cats should be kept inside or in some kind of sanctuary. They shouldn't be allowed to roam freely, and it's very hazardous for the cats too. So I would really like the city to do something to not have the cats, at least on my street. I think probably it'd be good everywhere. From this one study, this is from this year, I'm just going to read a little teeny piece. It says, it seems contradictory to support the release of stray cats onto urban streets where they cannot be guaranteed safety, access to food, veterinary care, and humane euthanasia when required. The decisions that TNR programs make about where to introduce or maintain cat colonies has the potential to adversely affect whole communities, which it has. Therefore, no TNR program should be attempted without environmental impact assessments, use of decision analysis networks, and consultation with the public based on factual information about possible consequences and expense. Where TNR is acceptable, the public should be kept apprised of efforts over time. However, program managers and volunteers must respect community decisions to reject TNR. And I'm gonna say I'm against it, and I'm part of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And you did provide that data to the council. So the council does have it, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to accounts payable.
I move that we pay accounts payable in the amount of $197,039.77.
Mr. Miller, you're signed up for number 18.
I'm sorry, it was a mistake. I wanted to be told the public about item 18. May I do that?
Yes, ma'am, we'll rewind here. Okay, Mr. Miller?
Okay. My apologies.
That's all right, sir.
I miswrote.
You miswrote?
I miswrote, yeah.
Okay.
My name's Fred Miller. I live at 39 Hazard Street. And I'm speaking on item 18, adding regulations related to vacation rentals. And as somebody involved in Airbnb issues the past 4 or 5 years, I'm glad there's movement by the council and the administration to address the growing concern of citizens about short-term rentals, STRs for brevity, such as Airbnb, VRBO, and Craigslist, and there's probably 10 or 15 other online aggregators that do that. That there is significant housing dislocation occurring, particularly in Old Bisbee. I'll give you a current example. An owner of a property with 2 long-term rental apartments recently sold the property. The new owner will keep one of the apartments as a rental and use the other as an Airbnb. Results of the action, such as this, is that there are fewer long-term rentals on the Old Bisbee market, and Warren market also. That's bad for workers, and hence it's bad for business owners. The more insidious problem of transient rentals is that when a significant portion of property ownership is not for primary use or is absentee, that affects the cultural life of our community. There's less volunteering, less adherence to community norms, less attention to fire danger, less caring for life-challenged people. In short, less responsibility for community at large. It's a hollowing out of the cultural life of Bisbee. In 2016, the state preempted local control about short-term rentals. However, in response to continuing problems in many communities throughout the state, a new law, HB 2672, took effect that added regulations to clarify what cities can do about short-term rentals. And some of the major provisions are you cannot operate a short-term rental without a tax license, a TPT, obtained from the Department of Revenue. Requires the TPT license number to be listed on every online listing for the short-term rental. They're supposed to provide the name of a contact person for the property to the city, and the location cannot be used for an event, wedding, party, restaurant, banquet that would otherwise require a license. And they did toss in there, cannot allow the location to be used for transient sex business, in case. In response to these new regs, I believe the council should authorize a protracted informational campaign utilizing social media, print, and mail to inform owners of the necessity of TPT licensing, listing, and require 24-hour contact information. The city should have that information in case of problems. And I believe that there should be a continually updated public database of all owners of STRs that is accessible to residents in order that they have the option of talking to owners, they're often absentee, or managers of STRs about the management of their properties in their neighborhood. Public STR information could allow tracking to impact particular streets, neighborhoods, and STRs don't be confused with STDs.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. One more time, Ms. Glenn.
I move that we approve accounts payable in the amount of $197,039.77.
Do we have a second? Second. Do we have questions? Yes.
Just got one. On the iWorks, the 5,475, is that monthly or is that the yearly fee?
That's a yearly fee.
That's a yearly. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor of paying accounts payable signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
I forgot she was there.
It, motion, now that my heart's calmed that back down, we, the motion passes unanimously. Moving to the consent agenda, we have items A through E. Item A, approval of the minutes of the regular session of Mayor and Council held on October 15, 2019 at 7 p.m. B, approval of the appointment of Sean DeCramer to the Design Review Board. C, approval of the resignation of Philip Martinez from the Police and Fire Advisory Committee, Ward 1 seat. D, approval of the appointment of Craig Emanuel to the Police and Fire Advisory Committee, Ward 1 seat. E, approval of a park facility and right-of-way use permit for native content for filming of interior and exterior of the St. Elmo Saloon, and for 10 parking spaces in front of St. Elmo Saloon Thursday, October 21st, 2019, from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. Does anybody wish any of these items pulled for discussion?
I would like to pull 2E.
2E is pulled for discussion. Any others? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda items A through D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve items A through D. Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino,
Aye.
Councilmember Higgins,
Aye.
Councilmember Johns, Mayor Pro Tem Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Smith.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Item E, approval of the park facility right-of-way use permit for native contents. Mr. Higgins?
Is there anyone here from Native Content? Is there anyone here representing Native Content? Guess not.
What is native content?
Native Content, as far as I can tell, is some kind of a collaboration of artists. They do a lot of still photography. They're slick looking. What I saw online was kind of slick looking. I don't know what kind of market they have. You know, it's nice work. You know, the work that they do is really looks good. But I don't know what kind of a market they have. I don't know where these things would be published, where they would be distributed. You know, I would you know, like to know that. And the other reason why I pulled this was because not just the 10 parking spaces, they also they're going to be shooting various cowboys at the St. Elmo Saloon, both interior and exterior, and would like to use a water truck to wet down the exterior of the street for the purpose to showcase the neon lights reflecting them. They'd also like to park a truck out front and shoot that as well. They're going to get 10 parking spaces on West Street and parking a pickup truck out front, and they want a police escort during this event so they'll have no issues with any locals or traffic. So I'd like some answers on that before I say yeah, you know.
I know that
And there's no one here.
I know that they're no longer requesting the water truck, because we don't have one to rent to them. So that is no longer an issue. They are going to be hiring a security group. I don't know exactly how many people. I know it was like 2 or 3 to help with security. They are not going to be hiring police, as far as I know. I don't know if Albert's still in here. They are going to be hiring you? Okay. I know Albert had a conversation with him as well, so.
Chief,
So
let's
when
hear about your conversation.
when they called about the permit, originally they wanted the entire parking lot behind the stock exchange and all the way, the spot we normally block off for the 4th of July, if you will. They wanted that entire parking lot. I explained to them I didn't think that that would be a very smart idea. I also explained to them there's, you know, Friday night in Bisbee is on Burry Gulch is a busy night, and I didn't know that that would be the smartest thing to do. They said that they'd spoken to the owners of the various businesses, and, that's the only day that they could do it. And, that's what they had available for their photographer that was gonna come down.
It's moved to Thursday. They
I did
changed
move.
it at the last minute. Yes.
There you go. I suggested it'd be better off on Thursday, so that part I'm at least happy about. They may have changed their mind. When I spoke to them on the phone, they said they were gonna hire 2 off-duty police officers, for, intermittent traffic, delays on Bury Gulch. They would be intermittently stopping cars while they shoot the photograph, a few minutes at a time, and then they'd be released to traffic. I asked them to send a list, of their specific requests, what they wanted, the detailed that they wanted that traffic stopped intermittently, and that they would be hiring off-duty police officers to do that. And so that could go in the permit, so we would know exactly what they were gonna do. Whether or not they did that, I'm not sure if they sent a updated version of that. I also told them to change the parking spaces from the almost 35, I think they requested originally, to, I told them that was probably gonna be a little bit too much. And that we would send it to mayor and council to see if it was authorized or not, but, that's what they asked for.
Ms. Coronado,
I don't have anything to add.
did they put in a change order?
They put in their date change at the last minute on Thursday. Yes.
I wanna voice my thoughts that, we certainly do wanna comply, we wanna help, free enterprise, we wanna help anything that's gonna, make Bisbee look good. But I really am getting unhappy with, us getting permits and then finding at the meeting that there's changes to those permits. We get a package that we look at ahead of time to make decisions. And, I think that if there's changes, we should have those changes in order, before we get here, in order to evaluate those changes. So, I reluctantly, will, move that we deny this particular, permit for those reasons.
The permit is right. He did submit a new permit stating Thursday.
And it's on its
Well, but we don't,
And he did change it to the 10 spaces. And it does have the police escort.
it does.
Yes, it's on the,
But we don't know if they are still using the police or not.
Well, as I said, when I spoke to him on the phone, he said he was in fact going to use it. I told him I wasn't gonna set anything up until after the meeting, because if the permit was denied, I wasn't gonna set up somebody to work, for an event that wasn't authorized, so, if the permit went through for mayor and council, if you guys approved it tonight, then we would set up we would schedule the officers to be at their work. So, I explained that to him over the phone, when I had my conversation, and,
Okay, but do we, then maybe I don't know what I'm listening to. But did you not indicate, Ms. Coronado, that, they may be hiring security?
I wasn't there for Albert's conversation, so.
he told me he was hiring us. That's the last that I heard, was that we were being hired. He was gonna hire 2 off-duty police officers, to be at their escort. And that he would be paying the city the vehicle use fee, for the vehicles as
And
well.
paying the officers direct?
Off-duty.
And paying the officers correct.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question? Chief?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I was on, yes, Mr. Pollack, you're right, sure.
You're the one that's gonna have to work with these guys and deal with whatever problems arise. Are you comfortable doing that?
So, I'll tell you, I'm comfortable doing whatever, the city authorizes them to do. So, and that's the challenge, and what I try to explain to him is, if we have a clear-cut permit, if we have a narrative within their permit that says, this is exactly what we wanna do, then I can then authorize my department to, allow them to do it. if we have a vague permit that doesn't really give us a detailed account of what they want, and they just wave it at us and say, this is it, it becomes a challenge for us, because somebody may interpret that they don't have permission to do something, and it puts us in a very challenging position. So, if he sent what I asked for, I didn't get it yet because it hasn't been authorized. I typically don't get the permits until they're authorized and finalized, and then they get sent to me, and we have them on file and dispatch, for those questions. When we get the calls, do they have a permit for this? We'll have those permits there. So, once I see that and I have it, then I'll be able to determine. We've had companies come in the past, some people may recall a couple years back, movie company got a permit, to do some filming, and next thing you know, they completely blocked off Erie Street and built a set and had no authorization from anybody to do that. And that's, that can be a challenge sometimes, and we had to deal with that challenge. But, I think if the things that I requested are in there, I don't think this will be, too much of a problem, so long as, again, it has the support of Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Chief.
I have made a motion, it can die for lack of a second, or we can have a second.
You did make a motion?
Yeah.
Didn't you?
Did you? I don't remember.
I didn't hear.
I made a motion that we deny it
Oh, that's right, reluctantly.
reluctantly. And should we, not wanna do that, then
Could we encourage them to reapply with the appropriate information if we do deny this?
well,
It's this week.
It's this week.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
okay, I'll take that as the, motion dies for, lack of a second. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve, consent agenda item E.
You moved it, what?
We approve consent agenda item E.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay. Thank you, Leslie. We have a motion and we have a second. Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino,
Aye.
Councilmember Higgins,
Nay.
Councilmember Johns, Mayor Pro Tem Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Smith,
Nay. Motion passes 4-2. Old business. Public auction of designated city surplus property located at 8 Douglas Road with a minimum bid price of $30,000. I believe this property, I just want to make sure that we know, this property contains a dilapidated home that will be required to have work begun on it within 30 days. Correct?
And garages? I have a question. Can I ask it here? Or no? Okay, sure.
We're questioning the 30 days.
Mhm.
It is 30.
It is 30
I'm,
days.
it is.
Okay.
Oh, well, I believe so. I have a message from our building and code.
Okay. Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
we got you.
Obviously, there can be a request for exemption and so forth and so forth. I just wanted to make that clear that there is a structure, dilapidated structure on that. Okay, so I want to open the bidding process. The minimum bid is $30,000. Do we have anybody that wishes to bid? No bids? Okay, we will close the bidding process.
Mayor,
Yes,
excuse me for the interruption. Could I ask you to confirm that there would or would not have been a bid in the event that that 30-day requirement for construction were not part of the bid requirement?
absolutely. Could I confirm, is there anybody here that have the intent on bidding on that property?
Not at 30,000.
Okay, Is there anybody here that had the intent on bidding on that property?
The minutes will reflect that there were none, so thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Item number 4. Public auction of designated city surplus property located adjacent to parcel 101-12-082A between Van Dyke and Black Knob View with a minimum bid price of $9,000. Open the bidding at the minimum bid of $9,000. Is there anybody here wishing to bid on that piece of property for $9,000? That is at $2 a square foot, as I recall. Hearing none, the bidding process is closed. Moving on to new business, item number 5. Presentation on the upcoming 2020 census by Dan Deaver, Senior Partner Specialist. Mr. Deaver, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Mayor and council.
Did you want to bid on that property, Rick?
I had to hold my arm down. So, am I okay?
Yes.
You are, sir.
Okay. I have a handout here, if I could. I won't be speaking directly from it, but there's materials in there that I will be referring to, and certainly you can refer to later. So, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the 2020 decennial census and why that's an important subject for this community and communities all around the United States. In brief, I'd like to, when I'm done here, I'd like to see everybody get excited about it and put in their best effort to make sure that this community has the best count that it can possibly get related to the census. So, the census is mandated by the Constitution, done decennial every 10 years since 1790. And I don't know which number this is. I'm not very good at that kind of math, but there's been a few. So why is it important to this community? Why is it important to us? The census data, and the data is generated by the count, determines where about $675 billion federal dollars get allocated. Different programs. There's over 130 programs, many of them that touch this community related to healthcare, education, infrastructure, transportation. There's a myriad of programs that money touches. That money is allocated based on the census count. So for every person that is missed in the count, it costs your community money. It costs the state money. So we want to make sure the census motto is we want to count everybody once and only once, as opposed to how we want them to vote, right? But count them once, only once, and in the right place. So that's what we're trying to achieve. The census also determines congressional apportionment. So congressional seats are apportioned based on the census count. States gain or lose congressional seats based on the count. And also districting, redistricting is determined to a great extent by the count as well. And on the community level, the data that is generated through the census determines where future infrastructure may be built, where schools may be built in the future, where our roads are going to be built. So it's really important. Businesses also use the data to make business decisions. So it's really utilized by folks throughout the community in terms of how the data is used. And it's about fair representation. So the more accurate the count for the community, the more fairly this community will be represented on this local, state, and federal level. A little bit about the count and how it's changed from the last census. For this census, In the past, it's all been, fill out the form and send the form in. This census will be taken online, over the telephone, through the mail, or by a census taker who comes to the home. So, beginning in March of 2020, postcards will be sent out through the post office, and they'll go in flight, so we don't inundate the post office all at once with all these postcards. So they'll begin going out in March, around March 12th. In the homes that have an address attached to that home will receive an invitation to reply to the census. If they don't respond to that, they'll receive another postcard with another prompting to reply. And eventually, if they don't reply or respond to any of those, either online or through the phone or by requesting a mail-in survey, somebody will come knock on the door to take the survey longhand, which is what we've all become used to in the past. Now there is an issue for residences that use P.O. boxes, which I think there's a great number of those in this community, probably about 30%, maybe more. We will conduct the count through what the process called update lead, and that is all by field workers going to those residences. So where there is not an address attached to a residence, a field worker will come to that residence, knock on the door, announce themselves, show that they're a legitimate census worker, and hand the resident a survey to fill out. If somebody doesn't answer the door or doesn't fill out the survey right there, they'll leave it on the doorstep to be filled out. So that's a process that you will have happen here in this community. So there will be field workers out in the field, and we want to make sure the community is aware of that. Census information is confidential. I'm sworn to confidentiality until I die, whether I work for the Census Department or not, Census Bureau or not. The data is only released in aggregate. It's not released individually, so there's no name attached to the data that gets released. So it's important that we stress the confidentiality aspect as well. What we really need from the community to make this count work for your community is that the trusted voices within the community, which I'm assuming many of them are here in front of me, get the word out that this is a good thing to do, it's good for the community, and that individuals need to fill out the form, or should fill out the form. That's an effort that many communities are undertaking right now. In fact, it's being done at the county level as well. So if you don't have an initiative going on at the city level at this time, probably be a good idea. I'll be glad to work with the city in getting that done so that we could get the word out and make sure people are informed about the process so that they feel comfortable with the process and want to participate. Let me see. One more thing. I'm about out of time.
You're
Okay. We are doing a lot of hiring. Census Bureau is hiring a lot of folks. In fact, this is the largest peacetime mobilization of personnel that takes place every 10 years. And we're hiring a lot of folks at over $15 an hour up to 20 some odd dollars an hour for part-time work. You can go to 2020census.gov/jobs and apply. It's a real easy process. That's really going to be mobilized a lot here in December and January. We put the field teams together. We want to hire people from the community where they will be working, so they're familiar with the community's familiar with them.
Thank you.
Be glad to take any questions.
Do you have any questions, Council?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can you give us an update on the status of the citizenship question that was argumentatively?
There will not be a citizenship question on the census form, on the decennial census form.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Well, thank you for your time, sir. I wanted to follow up real quick, which is by mentioning, as he indicated, the importance of this can't be overemphasized to us. We talk about business, and I can't tell you how many times I hear people say, why don't we have a Subway here, as an example? Well, because the first thing that Subway, in this example, does is they look at the population to see if it fits their demographics, if there's enough people to actually hit that magic number that they need. The second thing is even more important, because we'll be discussing this in just a few minutes, the short-term rental situation. We have to count everybody we can here, because of the short-term rental situation. We have vacant homes. We have homes that we have absentee owners, and those homes are gonna be counted as 0 people. So for every one of those short-term rentals, that's a vacant, you can count 2.5 people that are not there. So we need to make up for this. So I urge all of you to make sure that you and your neighbors and everybody fills out this census data, because it absolutely, the future of the city, not being dramatic, the future of the city absolutely rests with an accurate count. So, thank you. Off my soapbox. Item number 6, discussion of possible approval of amendment number 1 to the Jacobs Agreement for operation, maintenance, and management services for the City of Bisbee, San Jose wastewater treatment plant. Ms. Coleman, City Manager.
Yes, thank you. So, one of the options in your contract is that we not negotiate actually new contract, but that we use base multiplier for the next year's contract. In this case, Jacobs has indicated to us that the base multiplier is not entirely necessary in order for them to continue to provide us with the level of service that we currently receive. So that proposal is in your packet, and if you have any additional questions, I'd be happy to address them.
So the bottom line is it's less money than
What we anticipated.
Correct. All right, questions?
Yes, I have a question. I was not here when the original contract was issued, and concerns have been raised to me by some constituents about the contract, so I have one question and one question only. Do we have a contract with Jacobs that has been ratified by the city council? Thank you.
I'm shaking my head, yes.
City Manager?
I do have a contract that is signed and executed by all parties.
Okay, has it been approved by the city council?
I was not here at that time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I remember voting on it.
Absolutely. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve amendment number 1 to the Jacobs Agreement for operations, maintenance, and management services for the City of Bisbee, San Jose wastewater treatment plant.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, and Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino,
Nay.
Councilmember Higgins,
Aye.
Councilmember Johns, Mayor Pro Tem Klein,
Yeah.
Mayor Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-2. Item number 7, discussion of possible approval to enter into a service agreement with Sparklight Business for upgraded internet at the Copper Queen Library. Oh, there he is. How are you, sir?
Well.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, so before you is, it's time for a renewal for our internet contract with Sparklight. And we're looking to, for an upgrade in a faster speed. So we're just looking at one step up for faster internet. And we've added a few new computers. So we've got a new kids computer lab that has 4 computers, which are constantly used for gaming, which slows down the rest of the computers. So we have 12 other public computers, and then we have 4 staff computers. So that's what we're doing.
What speed are we going to for the public?
What's that?
What speed will we be going to?
Okay, so we're moving from 50 MBs to 150. So that's a 200% increase, and it's going from 72.24 a month to 127.49 a month. So it's about $1,800 a year.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the service agreement with Sparklight Business for upgraded internet at the Copper Queen Library, the best small library in America.
Second.
Please pronounce.
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino,
Aye.
Councilmember Higgins,
Aye.
Councilmember Johns,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Smith.
Aye, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8, discussion of possible approval of ADOA-GOA, open book service agreement, Ms. Bagley, Finance Director.
Mayor and Council, this is a contract with the Arizona Department of Administration to use their Open Books Transparency website to post the city's financial data. We did use this site prior to 2015, and then we changed over to OpenGov. OpenGov costs an additional $3,500 a year over the state site, and based on the low number of visitors that we've been getting to the OpenGov site, I recommend that we go back to the state site.
And it saves money.
To save money. We've only had 10 visitors to that site in the past 90 days, so I don't think it's worth an additional $3,500 a year.
I would agree. Any questions of Ms. Bagley? Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the agreement for open book service through December 31st, 2026.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino,
Aye.
Councilmember Higgins,
Aye.
Councilmember Johns,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Smith.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Item 9, discussion of possible approval of a right-of-way. Whoa.
Hey, Elba.
Is that Elmer Fudd? Yeah. Right-of-way across a certain city property located adjacent to 501 Adams Avenue, parcel 103-59-009. Mr. Ward, welcome, sir.
Mayor Council, nice to be here tonight. So, this item went before the Planning and Zoning Commission, where they had approved actually selling the property, or actually a trade-off on the property with Mr. Hanson. And then we went back and, the, Public Works wishes were that we not sell the property, that we grant a right-of-way across it. And so that's what, and that passed unanimously also before Planning and Zoning Commission. It'll open up the property behind where other people will be able to use that also. And, I recommend your approving the right-of-way from Mr. Hanson.
Would you be landlocked otherwise?
Not exactly, but it's really hard to get in the property because it's real steep there.
Okay. All right, any questions?
Mr. Mayor, I believe planning and zoning approved an easement, if I'm not correct. Wasn't it an easement approval, not a right-of-way approval?
Oh, that's right, yeah, it's an easement.
So that's important for your motion.
Yes, it is.
That you recognize an easement rather than a right-of-way.
Thank you, sir. Yes, that certainly is. Thank you.
And I'll note for the minutes that the packet reflects that the motion would be for an easement.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I move that we authorize the establishment of an easement across the city properties identified as Exhibit A and Exhibit B.
Thank you, sir. I'll second that. All those in favor signify by stating aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 10, discussion of possible approval of an updated job description for fire marshal. Ms. Landers, Personnel Director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In light of the recent focus on fire prevention by Old Bisbee Firewise and their efforts to obtain FEMA grant funding for hazard mitigation, we are proposing an update to the previously approved fire inspector job description. The fire marshal job description provides for an employee designated to cover the needs of the city of Bisbee relating to fire prevention and code enforcement, and emergency services may be provided as needed by the fire department. And this devoted position has the potential to generate revenue based upon implementation of proposed fees in the upcoming fee schedule.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions of Ms. Landers?
So this is actually the budget, or the funds for, to fund this, that's part of the budget.
It will fit in the budget currently.
I've got a question. Is this a civilian position or is this a promotion within the ranks?
This is currently going to be, well, it will be opened, if approved, it will be opened to the public. There are interests within the department for promotion.
Okay, is it a civilian position or is it a department position?
It is
By
a
your
PS
verbiage,
yeah.
it's a department position.
Yeah, it is a PSPRS position.
Okay, and I guess the concern I have right now is the increase in the salary. I mean, we all know that we had a very, very tight budget. And for things like this, to me, it makes more sense to bring it up around budget time rather than after the fact, because it is a significant increase.
Typically, the fire marshal's position is a battalion chief and above. That's why the increase.
I know, I'm just questioning it at this time rather than at the time.
As it indicated, it is within budget.
So we have money to bring on another position at a
It's-
very nice salary, and I'm not questioning that, but we don't have money to increase the firefighters we currently have.
It's not adding a position at this particular point. It's not increasing the fire department's personnel by one.
But it's increasing their budget.
It is increasing their budget, and the money is within their budget.
When it's not going to other firefighters, it's going to this budget. Instead of.
It's going to a firefighter.
But there wasn't money before to offset their wages to increase it. But now we have.
If we took that amount, Ms. Giacomino, and you divided it up among every firefighter, what would that actually be?
I don't really know, but I'm just curious how this compares to our top paid firefighter, this wage right now.
What is the wage?
It's 52,000 to 78,000.
Yeah. So
What's our top pay, right now, I don't want a person, what's our top pay right now for our firefighter?
With overtime?
I'm asking the
No,
city manager.
On me?
Yeah.
Well, the top paid would be the chief, and this is not above the chief's wage.
Among the rank and file?
This would be between a captain and a chief, so it would be similar to your police, your deputy police chief.
I have a question. How does this position have the potential to generate revenue based upon implementation of the proposed fees in the upcoming fee schedule?
proposed fee schedule that's on your website does include, fees for fire inspections and fines for failing to comply with fire regulations.
Thank you.
One more question.
Yes, ma'am.
I see that we are changing the fire inspector position, so then we are no longer going to have, fire inspectors within the department?
We're not asking you to eliminate the fire inspection position that was previously approved. We're asking for the addition of the fire marshal position, and we have, modified what was the fire inspector position to create the fire marshal position.
So then the fire inspector positions will remain.
Exactly.
Any other? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the updated fire marshal job description.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacominno,
Nay.
Councilmember Higgins,
Aye.
Councilmember Johns, Mayor Pro Tem Klein,
At this time, nay.
Mayor Smith,
Aye, motion passes 4-2. Number 11, discussion and possible approval of a second amendment to the contract for services with the city of Douglas to extend the transit services for the, transit service for the Bisbee Bus Transit Program for 1 year beginning October 1st, 2019 and ending September 30th, 2020. Mr. Harrow, Public Works Director. You're the only one that hasn't been up here yet.
No. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I will probably be up here for a little bit now.
Yeah, I think so.
As you all know, the city of Douglas does provide us with some administrative services for our bus transportation. They do an awesome job, and they help us out quite a bit. They do most of the administrative services, not all of it. We do handle some here, but this is simply just to continue the service that we do have under the contract with them.
Any questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the second amendment to the contract for services with the city of Douglas to extend the transit service for the Bisbee Bus Transit Program for 1 year beginning October 2019, ending September 2020.
I'll second. Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacominno,
Aye.
Councilmember Higgins,
Aye.
Councilmember Johns, Mayor Pro Tem Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Smith,
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Item 12, discussion and possible approval to waive the requirement to connect the property located at 10 Cochise Lane to the City of Bisbee Public Sanitation Sewer System. Mr. Howard.
So the property located at 10 Cochise Lane is approximately 775 feet away from a manhole. That's the closest one. In order for them to connect to our sewer system, they'd have to, this wouldn't even be a sewer service connection, it would be more of a sewer main. It's not very practical for them, and we typically look at about 200 feet for that requirement, so they're well beyond that 200 feet.
And this will then give us eventually revenue
Well, if we,
in the form of
yeah.
fees, yes. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I'm confused. How is this property serviced now?
I don't believe they are serviced, or they probably have a
Are
septic.
they getting a waiver for septic?
They have a septic, and they're looking to do improvements, and so, our building inspector, notified them that we do have that requirement, but in this case, following our code, we do have the ability to waive that requirement.
And allow them to continue?
And allow them to continue
on
the
septic.
private, it's essentially called a private sewer
Okay,
service.
thank you.
Okay, Mr. Harold, so then they are not being required to hook up to our system?
That's what I'm
They're gonna,
proposing.
they're just going to stay as they are now.
Correct. They're probably, they're with a septic system, yes.
Have they had any issues with their, septic system?
I don't believe so. I have not heard from Mr. Ward about any issues with their septic.
So if later on down the road there is an issue, how do we fit into
The
that?
septic system is regulated by ADEQ, so if there's an issue, we would rely on them to enforce any regulations. Right now, they said they're very far away from where our nearest manhole is. If, in this case, I wouldn't suggest putting in a sewer service down the road like this. You'd be crossing, a number of houses. And we should not allow people to be, it would be essentially, they have to be putting in a sewer main. Once if the sewer main was there, that came across, and all the other properties that front onto that could then tie into that, that would be in our sewer collection system. There's where we want to avoid, we don't want to allow, residents to, if this was a private sewer service, we would not want to allow other properties to tie into that private sewer service, because then they just created a private collection system, which is regulated by ADQ, requires a permit.
Am I incorrect that state law requires, if it's a reasonable distance?
Yes, it is reasonable.
I mean, I think the word is reasonable.
It does say that it is reasonable.
We're indicating 700 and some feet is
That's in,
stretching.
as I mentioned, you're crossing in front of other houses. We'd be relying on, historic knowledge for people down the road, to say you can't tie into this because it's not a sewer main, it's a sewer service connection.
Any other questions?
How many waivers do we have in the city of Bisbee similar to that?
I do not know that answer.
I think this is the first one that's come before us.
And the reason I'm bringing it before you is because when I was reviewing our code says that the public works director and the mayor can waive that requirement, so that's why it's here before you today.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
I move to waive the requirement to connect a property located at 10 Cochise Lane to the city of Bisbee, public sanitary sewer system.
Second.
All those in favor signify by stating aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. I believe that was unanimous. Aye, unanimous. Item 12, discussion of possible approval to waive the requirement to connect the property located at 7A Old Douglas Road to the city of Bisbee Public Sanitary Sewer System. Mr. Harrell.
So this property is a little bit different. The property is actually located downhill from where the sewer main is in Old Douglas Road. Sewer line is above. That would require the property owner, or in this case, they're looking to sell the property, so this is why it's coming before us now. They require the property owner to install a lift station, which can be quite costly. In this case, they did provide some estimates that they got, and they're about $20,000 to install this. They would have to, the 7A property is located south, so it does not front onto Old Douglas Road. They would have to come to the west into public land and then north up to Old Douglas Road with that lift station. Again, this is coming before us because of the reasonable. $20,000 is quite expensive. That does not include our $2,000 that we require for as a fee for tying in.
Questions?
I guess not so much a question, I was a little surprised with the lift station, I thought that was excessive.
And they can be quite expensive, and they require a lot of maintenance. There are houses that do have them. We have basements most of the time. Well, almost all the time. When you have a basement, they do put in a small lift station. In this case, the property it's in Old Douglas Road. I think $20,000 is pretty excessive.
They actually provided two
They did provide two. One was 20,000, I believe. One was just under at 19,000 and some change. I can have that here.
Yeah, you're right.
What are they using right now?
I don't believe they have just a septic. It looks like this property, and I don't know the history behind this property. Well, because it has an A and a B, it looks like it was split through the county. So the original property is tied in, and the property in the back is not.
Both quotes provide for the burying of an existing septic system, so that must be on a septic matter.
I guess the concern here again would be the fact that it is one property that's been split into two, if there are issues later with the septic.
Again, that's the ADEQ that regulates that septic system. They will be required to get a permit through ADEQ and maintain a private sewer system.
And I was also under the understanding that if there was, city sewer provided like we have, in order to sell the property, they would have to be, I mean, we were always told that they would have to be connected.
That's a requirement, I believe, that's from our city code. It says you have to tie in. This property is, I believe, right at about 180 feet with a linear feet to get to our system, which I was typically is not unreasonable. But again, this one is just taking into consideration the cost of that. Believe I was talking to Mr. Ward. He said the property itself isn't worth that much money.
But code says that we should tie in.
Code says that, yes, I believe that the distance is reasonable. The cost is what I'm taking into consideration and bringing for you.
And that's the reason for the request for waiver.
Yes.
And the code does contemplate minimum pro tem, but the waiver can occur.
Do we have a motion?
I move to waive the requirement to connect the property located at 7A Old Douglas Road to the City of Bisbee Public Sanitary Sewer System.
I'll second that. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 5-1. Item 14, discussion of possible approval to purchase roofing materials from ABC Supply Company, Inc. to repair the roof to City Hall. Mr. Harrell.
We did, our staff, public works staff did go and get cost proposals from 3 different companies. ABC was the low cost for that that's with shipping and with taxes. Cost is over $5,000, so that's why we're bringing it before you today. Hopefully we don't get too much rain in City Hall right now.
Questions, Mr. Harrell? Do we have a motion? Go ahead.
I move to approve the purchase roofing material from ABC Supply Company Incorporated to repair the roof to City Hall.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Those in favor, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item 15, discussion of possible approval to enter into a service agreement with Cintas Corporation to provide uniform rental facilities, faculty services, facility services, products, rentals, and laundry service.
So Public Works is looking to enter into for our uniforms mostly, but they do provide mats, and other types of materials that they provide with their service. We have had some unfortunate issues with our current uniform provider, so this is why we are looking to for an upgrade.
Questions?
What issues have we had with our current?
We've had billing issues. They've billed us for the last 3 months, I believe, 3 or 4 months. They've billed us for double billed us for one of our staff members. They've been billing us since January or February for mats that they don't provide. We've had uniforms that come back with wrong names. And so I've had a number of talks with them. I've attempted to have even more conversations with them, but oftentimes they don't respond back. So we've gone to Cintas. They provided us with a number of presentations and some samples of the uniforms that they can provide, and I'm confident that they can provide us with what we need.
Since the fiscal impact is to be determined, how does Cintas compare to what we have currently?
They're about half the price. They, I believe, for example, UniFirst, our current provider, charges, I believe, like 53 cents to launder their shirt. Cintas is, I think, 23 cents.
Silly question, but will the uniforms look the same as the ones?
They will look a little different. They will. I will tell you that our recycling division, they have dark blue uniforms. They can get warm, so they asked that they could go with the light. It's a light gray one, so we're gonna go with the same uniform for all the public works.
If for that price, everybody's neon orange.
Yeah, really.
That works too.
Yeah, any other questions?
Well, then I move to enter into a service agreement with Census Corporation to provide uniform rental, facility services, products rental, and laundry service.
Second. Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino,
Aye.
Councilmember Higgins,
Aye.
Councilmember Johns,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Smith.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Harrow.
Thank you.
Item 15, discussion of possible approval to enter into bid. 16, discussion of possible approval of a notice of intent to adopt ordinance O-19-06, amending the city code, Article 7, light pollution, and providing for repeal and severability. Ms. Coleman.
So this new ordinance addresses some of the concerns that you've heard from your citizens regarding dark skies and having availability to do observations from the city of Bisbee. It does exempt the city from the requirements, and also notes that sporting events that start before 11 a.m. Are also exempt from the code. So there are a few more exemptions if you need to discuss those further, but I believe that this addresses both sides of the lighting issue.
And just, I have provided the proposed ordinance to the people that were requesting for dark skies, the Dark Skies group in Bisbee, and they're very, very happy with it, indicating that takes all of their, alleviates all of their concerns, and that it does fit with the county's code, which the county is a dark skies county. Any questions?
Maybe not a question, but yeah, I do have a question. A statement, not a question. I'm concerned with dark sidewalks quite a bit when I walk around. And there's places in town where, it's dangerous. And, prudent people carry a small flashlight in their pocket to get around town at night. In some places, you can walk up, and as far as dark skies go, you can walk up in Zacatecas Canyon after dark and see the Milky Way on almost any clear night. It's not like it's a burning issue, but it seems to be what people want. They want this designation. My only question is the cost for replacing all the lights. Because I think this is going to be done on a gradual basis.
Yes.
But is there any estimate of cost for this entire program?
So
New
right
light
now,
bulb.
yes, so now, right now you do work with APS, to maintain the lights. The city owns the poles, as I understand, and APS maintains the lights. So right now they're maintaining a less expensive bulb that requires more maintenance. We will go to a more expensive bulb that requires less maintenance. So essentially, we will come out the same on our cost for the bulbs and the maintenance. And then where we should see our savings, of course, is on the energy as we change out bulbs from the standard bulb to the LEDs.
And APS is changing those out as they burn out.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the notice of intent to adopt ordinance 0-19-06, amending the city code, Article 7, light pollution and providing for repeal and severability.
I'll second. Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino,
Aye.
Councilmember Higgins,
Aye.
Councilmember Johns, Mayor Pro Tem Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Smith.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Item 17, discussion of possible approval of a notice of intent to adopt ordinance O-19-07, amending the city code section 10.1.8, nuisance. Ms. Coleman.
This new addition to your nuisance ordinance basically sets some timeframes for activities that happen within the city. There have been noises in neighborhoods that have disturbed the residents before what they would consider normal waking time. And this will set some parameters to help those who work within our city to be cognizant of families and folks who have other obligations.
And I might add, if I may.
Yes.
I saw you were finished, believe you were finished.
I was.
Yes, right. A couple things, the timing was important, as well as there's a number of exemptions. And previously, an exemption could only be granted by city court. And it's important to know now that an exemption can be requested and granted by the city manager. And so that's an important distinction also. It makes it much easier in case an exemption is needed. Questions?
I have an issue with the ordinance. In 10.1.8A, in reading this ordinance for the first time, I was struck by the sentence, anything which is injurious to the health or morals or is indecent or offensive to the senses. That is a highly subjective statement, open to interpretation, that I don't think is appropriate for this ordinance. And I would like to table this ordinance for a rewrite. And I would like to make a motion to table it. Not only because I find this first sentence offensive, but because a lot of traffic that I've seen on the internet from people in the community also finds it offensive. I'm also concerned about the fees. I think they're exorbitant for something that we consider a nuisance. To be charging people $250 for the first offense and then target them on the second offense, which by the way says the first violation in this ordinance, for another $500, and finally in the third and subsequent violation, $2,500. Those are fines that could be levied against somebody for a misdemeanor or an offense against the city. I think that's exorbitant.
Okay, I'll indicate a couple things. Number one, take fines first, in my opinion. This is for deterrent, and a $50 fine does not deter an action. A contractor, as an example, may easily wish to pay $50 and start it for realizing that the $50 allows him to get his job done faster, but wakes up the neighborhood, and that he's willing to pay that $50 as an example. $500 or $250 in this case is more of a deterrent and a possibility. The second part is you're talking about being too vague and subjective. If we, first of all, it's my opinion that laws such as this have to be subjective because the circumstances change from one set of circumstances to another as to what is objective on a Saturday may not be on a Tuesday or vice versa. And depends on those circumstances, and that is up to, in most cases, a judge to make that determination if in fact, under those circumstances, this was a nuisance. Further, when we start enumerating in a law and we start trying to be more specific, then we leave something out. If it is more general, then it can be applied as needed. If it's specific, then we run the risk of it saying, just as we did before, we didn't have time. And so if we wanted to cite somebody for a nuisance at 3 o'clock in the morning, we found out that there was no time in the statute that allowed us to do that. So I argue that this is the wording that part is the proper wording, and that the fines are appropriate. So with respect, that's my position.
And I respect your position. I also want to point out that mankind has spent thousands of years killing each other because they cannot agree on a definition of moral. And I just don't see how that statement fits in with the rest of the paragraph. If you read the paragraph without the portion or morals or is indecent or offensive to the senses, you have a properly structured set paragraph that describes a lot of things that could be nuisances. I realize that there are other things that can never be covered in a paragraph. And that's up to a judge if they're going to have to determine whether or not. But if someone wears a t-shirt that has a phrase on it that I find personally offensive to my senses, well, I need to grow a tougher skin and not be offended by that or let it pass as an item of free speech. That's why this rubs me the wrong way. It does not fit in this paragraph.
Okay, I will call myself on a point of order. Because you did make a motion, and we are improper in even discussing it without your second. So I apologize for that. Do we have a second to his motion to table?
Well, you second this, so that we can discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we do have a second for your motion to table, and now we can discuss. I apologize for jumping in.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Where it says under the exemptions, construction, repair, remodeling, conducted between 6 a.m. and 8. I have an issue with 6 a.m. I mean, I get up and go to work at 5:30. That's when I get up. But I find it very disturbing when people are cranking chainsaws and lawnmowers at 6 o'clock in the morning. Especially when I had a kid when she was young, because nothing was more irritating than that. I mean, what's wrong with 7 o'clock in the morning? I mean, I just think that's a little. We're not Phoenix, so it's not like we have 120 degree. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Well, go ahead, Andy, you're first.
Well, just to, that was the one thing I wanted to bring was construction. You're talking about homeowners being out there with their lawnmowers and stuff. I'm talking construction people. You brought up Mayor at 4 o'clock in the morning. I can guarantee you they're not gonna be working at 4 o'clock in the morning. However, most construction companies will start setting up about 5 o'clock. And just bringing in dozers or whatnot, if they need to, is going to make noise. But most construction companies, legit companies, will not start in neighborhoods before 6 o'clock. But there may be noise in setting up, so I don't know. I think we need some work on that.
Well, right, and I'm not arguing the point. You're talking about most legitimate companies, and I have no argument with that. But we have other construction, both licensed and unlicensed, that may in fact do just that. Mr. Higgins?
Yes. A couple things. One of the things is that Joe Ward is allegedly supposedly writing an ordinance, which, specifically, regulates, construction. And, the time that he had mentioned, was, starting time of 7 o'clock, and having it from 7 to 7. So I don't know if this ordinance is actually being written or not. I wish Joe was here.
This is it.
Oh, this is the ordinance? Well, you know, in my neighborhood, they start sometimes at 4:45, and moving stuff into place, is you know, that's as, annoying as the actual work. I mean, you know, you start backing down the street with a backhoe at you know, 4:45. I mean, you've started work at 4:45. You know, just because you don't start digging a hole until 6, you started work at 4:45. And also, I was hoping that this would be addressed, and my understanding is that it has been, but I haven't seen anything happen. Parking construction equipment in residential neighborhoods. Now, this has been an ongoing issue.
We're
Okay, I'm getting off the topic. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, that's a different story. But yeah, my main objection to this, I kind of agree with Lou. When you start talking about morals, I get nervous. So if we took out the sections that says which is injurious to the health or morals, or is indecent or offensive to the senses, or an obstruction to the free use of property, just took that out and said anything which interferes with the comfortable enjoyment of life. You know, just, you know, skip all that about morality and health and indecency and offensive to the senses, and just go to interfere with. That way, it would seem to me that, you know, that it's, you know, I don't want to sit here and legislate morality. So I would be okay with this if you know, we removed.
Well, the motion right now is to table or not.
All right. And there was a second.
Right.
All right.
You seconded.
I seconded.
Mr. Ledbetter.
A couple quick observations tonight. Thanks to Mr. Harrow. I would just remind council that trash collection begins at 6 a.m. in Bisbee. So if you alter that time, then the city would be inconsistent with trash collection. We'd have to adjust that as well, probably to give the right message to the community if you adjust that 6 a.m. time period. And secondly, in the past couple weeks here in Bisbee, you've had a homeowner spray paint expletives to other homeowners on their home. If you remove this language, that would be lawful. And I would just suggest to you that if you task me with defining it without having the judicial authority to define it, because definitions according to the Constitution, offensive, inappropriate language is defined, as the mayor's pointed out, by context and content. So what can be said in the school district is different than what can be said in public. What can be said on a t-shirt is different than what can be said in a church. So it depends on the context. And the U.S. Supreme Court pointed out more than 50 years ago that to define pornography, for example, one justice commented and actually wrote it in the opinion, I know it when I see it, but I can't define it. So if I'm tasked with defining, or if you remove it altogether, you will, I respectfully submit to you, you will have issues in which someone can publicly put up a sign that tells their neighbors to go do things that are anatomically impossible. And in that context, you would probably, as a city, want to have the authority and teeth to remove that. Otherwise, if it's an argument about what their free speech rights are, they do have the opportunity to take it up with the court and appeal it as necessary. But the ability to...
You doing okay there, Leslie? Hello? But... You've been up but everybody's having a real good time.
Off topic.
And Mr. Pollack does, Councilman Pollack raises a good point. It depends on the circumstances. It depends on your community. What might be acceptable in Bisbee, Arizona could arguably not be acceptable in front of the city council, perhaps in Mississippi. No knock against Mississippi, but I understand it can vary. But when you try to define it in a statute, it becomes next to impossible, unenforceable, and certainly in a court system, they would largely never enforce it if you try to elementally define it, because it'll be a moving target that you'll never be able to accomplish.
I think my biggest issue is the health of morals. Morals bugs me. Okay, indecent and offensive, I get that, because I know which the one instance we're talking about in my ward. I wouldn't appreciate having to look at that every morning when I get up, and I understand that. But when we start talking interest to the health of morals, my morals aren't necessarily, so I can guarantee you, my morals aren't the same as yours. And I'm not saying that my morals are corrupted. Armageddon, you know, it's all but my point is, I find that line particularly sticky. I just wish there was another way that it could be written, and I understand what you're saying, you know, we're on that fine line. Is there not a better way that we can write it that's going to address the offensive and decent, I don't know. Again, I can give you a prime example. Was up the Gulch years ago, they had this building straight across from City Park that had a mannequin that was like, oh my God, and we had children activities there, and it was just like shield the kids as we walked by this disgusting building, and the owner wouldn't do anything about it. So, I mean, that's where the indecent and offensive I get falls in, but again, health and morals, I don't, that kind of bothers me.
I've got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the 10.1.8A, wasn't this always there before, or?
Yes.
Yes. It just,
It hasn't been changed.
Okay,
That came in 1992.
That's correct.
okay, so I guess I'm wondering why,
Because it's in front of us now, we're reading it.
but there was no issue before.
No, ma'am. Yeah, this is not new language.
I'm aware of that.
I'm not suggesting you're not.
I'm making it
But
clear.
we have a number of other people.
I'm making it clear that I'm aware of
That this is the same language that's been there, and what this new request is, that it changes it from the city magistrate to the city manager, and talks about exemptions, which weren't there before, and does add the hours. So you have a motion. Any other comments?
I agree that it can be cleaned up and made more suitable for everyone involved.
Okay, we have a motion to table. Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino,
Aye.
Councilmember Higgins,
Aye.
Councilmember Jones, Mayor Pro Tem Klein,
Nay.
Mayor Smith,
Nay. Motion passes 5-2. Or 4-2. It's one of them. I have no idea how many imaginary people are by me. It sounds like certainly more than one.
I was concerned a minute ago.
Yeah. Okay, number 18. Discussion of possible approval of a notice of intent to adopt ordinance 01908, amending the city code, chapter 8, business regulations, and adding regulations related to vacation rentals. Ms. Coleman?
Yes, so the Arizona legislature recently took action that allows cities to have some oversight on vacation rentals. So we can require them to let us know who the owner is, how to contact them, to require them to have a tax license. So this takes those regulations that are allowed of us and puts them into a format so that we can enforce them here in the city.
And if I might follow up with that, There's something that came up as a result of my meeting at the Arizona Senate when we had an ad hoc meeting of the mayors regarding the short-term rentals. And so I did bring this back, hoping that we would get this in place. It provides those things that we can do, that the state allows us to do. This allows us to do that. And the importance is there's fines attached to this. Those fines, with us passing this ordinance, those fines come to us. Otherwise, if we didn't pass this ordinance, it's still a state law, but the fines go to the state. Okay? So with this, the fines come to the city of Bisbee. So, just as an explanation. Any questions?
I kind of have a question. Clarify my possible misunderstanding. So, the state, my understanding is that the state has enacted kind of laws for people with short-term rentals. So I see this where it says that we can suspend it. Is that within the law? Because my understanding was that we can't go against, people that have short-term. We can't enact laws that say you can't have them in your town. But on it's 8.9.6C.
I was looking to see if I had brought the legislation with me, and I have not.
Right, I'm just curious. I mean, I'm not against that.
Right.
Wish we could, I would like to see we had more control, but my concern is listening to what Ducey had put forth in the first place. Is that going to be in conflict with his reading?
Yeah, Ducey is, the governor did in fact sign the state law that we are patterning this off of.
Okay.
That is, you're correct, that is a significant change, if I might speak
Sure.
for the city manager. The city of Sedona had passed an ordinance some time ago that prohibited vacation rentals in a number of contexts, both by neighborhood and type of usage. They were challenged in the court system and lost. In reaction to that, the state has adopted a remarkably similar ordinance to what's in state law, and what's in front of you is this ordinance. And the mayor did request the drafting of this ordinance, and then it was approved by the manager in order for those fines to be in place at the city level. And the ability to regulate at the city level. It's not just collection of fees, but knowing who owns it, being able to contact them when there's a problem. And as you know, probably the position became very strong recently as Airbnb is redrafting all its policies for those people who own it because of shootings and other violent acts that occur inside of homes. So this gives you the opportunity to regulate, provide oversight, and collect revenue for fines associated with improper usage.
I have one other question too along that same line. So with this, us voting this in, it's going to let us know who is running the Airbnbs. Are Airbnbs or short-term rentals under the same auspice as a hotel? Would they be getting the same taxation from us, or no? Is that something?
No. The TPT tax that's applied, or transactional privilege tax that's applied to the Airbnb vacation rental usage for the transient use, whereas hotel taxes can be different. Bed, board, and booze taxes, for example, can be levied by city of Utah.
That actually was a compromise in the Senate in order to get this through, was that they would be taxed not the same. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the notice of intent to adopt ordinance 01908, amending the city code, chapter 8, business regulations, and adding regulations related to vacation rentals.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. And Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacominno,
Aye.
Councilmember Higgins,
Aye.
Councilmember Johns, Mayor Pro Tem Klein,
Aye.
Mayor Smith.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. I do want to thank Mr. Ledbetter for drafting these last three ordinances. It's a lot of work, and I, as mayor, certainly appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
More to come.
Oh, yes, more to come. You betcha.
There are many in the pipeline that city managers asked me.
We're busy.
Yes.
Item number 19 has been pulled. Item 19 has been pulled after I had a conversation with the shelter individuals, and they requested that it be pulled at this point, so it's actually pulled at their request. City manager's report.
So I just wanted to recognize that it's through Jen Loria and your contract for marketing with Dog Cat Mouse Media that the follow-up with Small Business Revolution took place. Jen's had several follow-up phone calls. She'll be on a conference call this Thursday and has invited me to listen in on that call with her. And we will be anticipating a visit from the folks with Small Business Revolution as part of their efforts to narrow down the field from 10 towns to 5 towns. So that will all be happening in a very short span of time. And again, Jen just did an awesome job following up with them like every step of the way. It's been no small task. And then also to let you know that we did receive a response to the RFQ for City Hall. Jesus and I and Al Anderson all have a copy of that. We're reviewing them today, and we'll meet tomorrow to discuss the proposal that we received. We may be able to get back to you at your first meeting in December to make a recommendation to you.
Wow, great. Ms. Giacominno.
November 23rd, which is this Saturday, is the annual cake auction. Kiwanis sponsors it. We auction off cakes, and all proceeds go to the Kiwanis Scholarship, Bisbee Firefighters Union, and also to Project Graduation. You can drop cakes off starting at 11 o'clock, and we will judge them at 1. And we give out a variety of different prizes: most beautiful, most original, best tasting. And the actual auction will begin at 2 o'clock. We will be televised on Channel 2, and we will also be live on YouTube and on the Fireman's Facebook page. So you can follow along with us. I don't know if I'm forgetting anything. But like I said, it's a good cause. We split the money evenly between all 3 organizations, and it benefits 3 great organizations.
And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, please come down. We're at the high school. It's at Bisbee High School, and Kiwanis will be selling green chili burrito plates. So you can kind of come down and check it out, and look at the cakes and mingle and buy some food, and then you can bid while you're there. So it makes it fun.
Have lunch before your dessert.
Yes. Is there anything else that I forgot? Miss Rhodes? Yeah, okay.
Just come on down to the cake auction.
Yeah.
Okay.
I move that we adjourn.
We have a motion second. Those in favor, signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Jones. I'm shutting you off now.